am Mathilde, and I'm amazed how we got from a path to a desalination water factory seen here to the recommendations the Water Supply Advisory Committee presented to the Santa Cruz City Council. To set the scene, let's review first where our water comes from.
We are pretty much dependent on what we get from the rainfall in our county that either recharges our aquifers or is intercepted by our forested watersheds. We are mostly dependent on surface water. And by far the largest water body that supplies surface water, especially to Santa Cruz and the San Lorenzo Valley, is the San Lorenzo River. It's forested, primarily mixed redwood forests, and they do an amazing job of intercepting rainfall, buffering those steep slopes of the Santa Cruz Mountains.
In 2010 and 11, the debate about desalination and its alternatives heated up, and many people organized community events.
Representing the City of Santa Cruz and Soquel Creek Water District, the proponents of a seawater desalination project are Mike Rotkin and Toby Goddard. Representing Desal Alternatives, advocates for alternatives to a desalination plant, are James Bentley and Rick Longinati.
One of the defining questions for our time is how we will steward the natural resources of this planet.
I'm very pleased that we live in a community where lots of people, our opponents included, are doing creative thinking about possibility for alternative ways to deal with our water problems. And I would like the city to implement every feasible idea that people come up with that actually would make a difference in this community.
I was going to talk about joint fact-finding and urge the council to initiate joint fact-finding before you get the urban water management plan finalized and coming back to you. This is a great opportunity to resolve issues of fact. You know, I've been getting together with Mike Rotkin a couple times, and I think the meetings have been fruitful, you know, just to go over the facts together. But that kind of dialogue really needs to happen with the water department and other community groups.
That adaptation requires that they, and they're talking about districts, learn to relate to the public, not just as passive customers, but as partners in creating the solution. I was walking through the Madrid airport last week, and I saw this. This is a Spanish advertisement, and it translates to "don't go it alone," and I thought it was cool.
What was stirring the pot in this desalination debate? One of the first ingredients I learned about was energy use.
This is a slide that shows the comparison of the energy use required for desalination compared to our current energy use. So it's 13 times the amount of power, electrical power, to desalinate a gallon of water as what we can do right now.
To create a resource that would take a large amount of carbon dioxide to produce and to operate flies in the face of sustainable living, which I have always experienced this city to be a leader in and a beacon in.
You could certainly power a desalination plant using low carbon energy with a very short energy payback time. The question is, what space is left for the rest of us to reduce our carbon emissions? I think that we can cover all the city parking lots to power the desal plant, but then how do we power the city?
In our language, we say "eme kauko," and it means all my relations. And it's an acknowledgement that everything living is relative to us and that we are relative to it. You know, and that's how we have to look at it. And so, you know, we call it a Native American philosophy, but you have to remember, going back to a certain time in this world, that it was a basic human philosophy of living at one with Mother Earth and the nature around you.
We act as human beings as though we could ignore and break the laws of nature and the laws that we've set up. The law that we're going to sell water, or the laws that the university can build on the North Campus, are inevitable and cannot be broken. We need to change that polarity, because ultimately we live in the world of nature. And what we're doing to the world of nature will destroy ultimately the world that we have built, which we call civilization, and upon which we immediately depend for life and sustenance. Let's remember that, and let's change our laws to correspond to what nature demands.
Gary Patton and many university students and faculty members appealed to the local Agency Formation Committee, or LAFCO, to deny the city an extension of water service. He revealed that state law requires that the city obtain LAFCO approval before extending water service to the UCSC North Campus development. The LAFCO meetings were well attended until December 5th, when a court decision invalidated the environmental impact report for the North Campus extension. Over the last 6 years, I followed a discussion about possible ways to address our water challenges. What are some of those ingredients?
I urge the Council to ask the Water Department to revise the Water Management Plan, the draft, to extend the Water Neutral Development Program to the entire service area, not just the campus. Thank you.
If we don't deal with growth in our water demand,
right, the university, this
if we can't offset that growth, now these are offsets that are real, that if we can really offset that growth by conservation measures, those are the kind of measures that we need to be funding in order to offset growth, and that way our drought risk doesn't get any worse. And so we call that water neutral development. The neighbor district, Soquel Creek, has water neutral development. They've been doing it since 2003. Santa Cruz has not done it.
The concept is that if you're going to build a new home, you've got to save water, or business, or church, or school, you've got to save water somewhere else in the community. And so you can replace all kinds of things to get credits.
Exchanging water with Soquel can be done. Santa Cruz has excess winter supply that could be used to help Soquel, and this in turn would put them in better position to help Santa Cruz in dry years. Their plan calls for operating the desal plant all winter long while streams are flowing and rain is falling. This seems unreasonable, and we need to exhaust our pursuit of available resources before committing to such an extreme measure.
I know that the Water Department says that until there is demonstrable and long-term basin recovery, there would be no way those aquifers could be tapped to send water to Santa Cruz. Well, that's not exactly what I learned from the letter that the Soquel Creek Water Board sent to you on October 19th. The offer is not contingent upon recovery of the groundwater basin.
This has been recommended since at least 1985 on a series of engineering studies, and it never got anywhere. The most recent time that Santa Cruz considered it was around 2000, 2001. They dropped it off the table because they were worried about water rights. Well, John Ricker from our county picked it up off the floor and ran with it. He got state bond money to investigate it. Kennedy Jenks did a study on it. So now we have a bona fide water transfer strategy that has some engineering study behind it.
These demand models contradict reality as they continually forecast scenarios for perpetual water demand growth is into 20-year periods, regardless of the reality of actual demand.
There's no correction for conservation in the current projection for future water demand shown on this chart. This projection assumes that our conservation savings over the next 20 years is zero. That makes our drought risk appear more severe than it would be if the Water Department factored in the amount of water saved through conservation.
We all learned much about conservation, and it had a great impact on our water use.
This is what we call a laundry landscape watering system. The water from the washing machine can either go to the ocean or sewer or to the landscape by using this valve. As of course I want to water my garden since we've had a lot of dry days lately, so I've turned it to landscaping. I turn on the washing machine, and on the spin cycle it'll be shooting water out into the garden, approximately half of the property.
I'm representing the Ecological Landscaping Association, which has a chapter here in Santa Cruz. And we want to say that there are far too many brilliant solutions for water conservation and savings, like gray water, like rainwater catchment, like seriously drought-tolerant landscapes, to ever justify a desalination plant.
How long do you think it took them to find the balloons? 8 balloons hidden around the world using this method where they incentivize the people to talk to people, and that's the key. 4 hours. Yeah, 4 hours. I tell that story because now we're looking at one of the innovative ways we're going to do rebates, potentially, and we may do a pilot program, is to not to incentivize just the person who gets the rebate, but maybe the person who talks to the person who gets the rebate. This conservation ethic, this idea that we're all going to save water, we're all in it together, has really changed Australia in a way that we need to change as well. Because the price of water also got so expensive in Australia, people did everything they could to get off what they called utility or grid water. Instead of cisterns, they call them tanks. And the way they greet people is, how's your tank today? Because everyone's measuring the level of the captured water. Their biggest concern is, how can we look at a watershed from a household level? The water you can capture off your roof, the water you can capture on a street, and in their case, in a parking lot. So they capture 210,000 gallons underneath their parking lot, filter that water through the ground, and use it for watering for the whole year for their appropriate landscaping.
The basic idea of it is, there's so much water running down the San Lorenzo River during the wintertime that Soquel Creek could be put on river water during 4 months out of the year, the wet months out of the year, and they would be resting their pumps. Their pumps would sit idle and not pump out of the ground and let that groundwater level recharge. If we are collaborating with Soquel District and also Scotts Valley District, because they're sitting on an aquifer that needs replenishment as well, that water, you can think of it as banking that water. For Santa Cruz, you could think of it as banking the water. The water could come back to Santa Cruz.
So by recharging our aquifers and raising that groundwater level up, not only will we have more flow in our streams, which means you have to release less reservoir water to maintain those flows, but you also have more groundwater to use as well, and you have a healthier stream for aquatic life.
Discontent with the desal plans grew, and people started to call for action.
And how about sending someone around to these desal plants that aren't working and find out what it costs? I suggest you do not send Mr. Kocher to do that, or me for that matter. Get someone who would be objective.
We showed up at pro-desal invitation-only meetings expressing the need for alternatives. And we did not stop there. Creative displays and community events such as the mayor's event at Mitchell's Cove marked the campaign.
What we're here today to support is the right to vote being included in the charter of the City of Santa Cruz, and that's our constitution, our local constitution. And once we put it in the Constitution, it can only be changed by a vote of the people again. It can't be changed by 4 votes on the City Council. It's there. And so it's a guaranteed right to vote, and that's why we got these T-shirts on, guarantee the right to vote.
Wherever in the world there is more democracy, the environment is better off, and the communities are more livable. This is demonstrated, and we have been part of exercising that and demonstrating it.
Peter Douglas, he died this past week. He was the executive director of the Coastal Commission. And Peter said, the coast is never saved. The coast is always being saved. Santa Cruz is never saved. Santa Cruz is always being saved by you and you and you and you.
And we have not only the right to vote, but we also have the right to know those costs, the benefits, and the potential of any of those alternatives. We owe it to the ratepayers and the future generations.
Let's hear it for the people of Santa Cruz.
And presented the City Council with signatures for a charter amendment to give the voters the ultimate decision about a final desal proposal. Enough signatures were gathered, and the campaign began.
my home, this bay called Monterey. And all that I ask is to let it stay this way. All we can own is what we leave behind. And if we care to save this place, now's the time.
This rain is our rain, this sea is our sea, the San Lorenzo and the branch of 40, and from Loch Lomond down to the ocean, we'll keep the water flowing clear and free.
And the voters overwhelmingly approved of that by 73%. So that plus an EIR, draft EIR, that fell flat when it was read by the fisheries agencies and the California Coastal Commission, who gave comments on the draft that said, you know, you didn't look at alternatives adequately. So between those two things, the city put it on the back burner. It's still one of the options under consideration of this new Citizens Water Supply Advisory Committee. I'm on that. The pro-desal folks are on it. The business community folks, representatives are on it. Some other environmentalist groups and other citizens. It's 14 members altogether.
For 18 months, WASAC worked tirelessly with the help of consultants and many people from the community. Among others, Jerry Paul and Scott McGilfray shared innovative research with the committee. The City Council and Water Commission held a joint study session to discuss the WASAC recommendations on November 10th.
It was about 4 years ago tonight we had another study session going over the Urban Water Management Plan of 2010. It's a far different night tonight. I wish to thank the City Council for crafting and signing an agreement with Soquel Creek to move water. It's a small amount of water, but it moves water, and it moves it in the right direction. And you have done something that we didn't think was possible. So thank you very much for opening your minds and creating that opportunity.
With conservation in lieu and ASR, we will be paying local hydrologists, engineers, plumbers, pipe fitters, backhoe operators, electricians, and other contractors to design and build a system of pumps and pipes that will not need replacing for decades. Conservation in lieu and ASR are nature-friendly technologies that are well suited to our local area. That's appropriate technology. Building and maintaining those appropriate technologies will also keep our local dollars local. That's appropriate economics.
And I hope you vote to move this forward with a portfolio that'll solve a future for our grandchildren.
I would like to invite Bill Teisling from the Chamber of Commerce to come up and join me here.
This is a great feat to be able to bring together the complexity that is this deal. And the gift of it, and the gift of, as was the gift of Vision Santa Cruz, is being able to do this collectively and come to an agreement that everybody could live with, and that we hope that you will bring to fruition.
All those in favor, please say aye. 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 All those opposed say no, and there are none. So the motion passes unanimously, and thank you all.
And here we are. People in Santa Cruz County showed up at meetings, educational forums, and rallies, collected signatures, registered voters, and voted, wrote op-eds and letters to local papers, and spoke in public at meetings held by the Santa Cruz City Council, Water Commission, Soquel Creek Water District, and Board of Supervisors. So, don't stop now. United by these WASAC recommendations, we each need to do our part to implement them for us and future generations.